Hello and welcome to Property Mastermind podcast, episode 257. Today we are talking 5 days, 5 skills. The property development audit that stopped people in their tracks. Bob and I ran recently a 5-day property development challenge inside a Facebook group that we opened specifically for that, and you can still get access if you would like to watch it. Anyway, these are the key takeaways and the things that you probably will get a lot of use out of. So let's jump on into this episode, number 257. Hello and welcome to Property Mastermind podcast, episode 257. Crikey, Bob, what a name. What did I call it that? 5 days, 5 skills, the property development audit that stopped everyone in their tracks.
How do you ever remember that?
Well, I didn't actually remember. I had to do 3 start takes.
Well done. Congratulations.
It's actually
That's a mouthful and a half.
It's quite funny because we probably said it many times before, but I start the podcast and every week I do at least 2 starts.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. I start and it's like, hello, and then I bumble it. It's just a habit I'm in, I think. But anyways, that's just me and how I roll. Bob, episode 257, welcome to, that's like 5 years of solid podcasting.
Yeah, it is. Be a bit over 5 probably now.
Crikey.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, pretty well spot on 5 years. What troopers we are.
We should actually find out what date we started. I can do that.
We only ever missed 2 or 3 weeks, in like 2 weeks in 5 years.
Yeah.
For very good reason. So, yeah, there you go. Amazing.
Anyway, before we kick off, Property Millionaires Exposed, Sondra Ballot. Sondra, we had a chat yesterday and it was a great chat, and I've emailed you everything I said I would this morning. How good am I? Anyway, here is a book coming out to you. I don't think you've ever received it. If you have, well, you'll have another and you'll be able to give it away as a gift. I also have some shout outs today to some people that listen on a regular basis that I want to say hi to, because we have so many listeners, which is really nice. Hit subscribe if you watch us on YouTube. That'll be awesome. And you know what? I challenge you to leave a comment. I would love for you to write a comment. It is well known that in the finance industry and in the property industry, or places where there's money discussed, people don't make comments. I don't know why. We've talked about it. It's just one of those things. But give us a comment. We would love for you to say something. Start an interaction. That'd be awesome. Anyway, my shout outs are to Peter C, who listens to us while he's mowing his lawns. How you going, Peter? I'm in your ear. Hello. I hope you're good. How are the lawns? And then to Mark H. He also listens regularly. Mark, both of these people have been through our mentoring program, actually. And Mark's building something pretty special at the moment, isn't he, Bob?
He is.
Yeah, and he's also just involved with us in a few other ways, and he'll often find out things through the podcast, which is so quite funny. He sent me an email yesterday. I need to get back to you today, Mark. And then Megan Kotlakis. It's a tough last name, Megan. I have met Megan. Megan was the first person to ever buy my book, 3 Wines In. So, and I know she listens. So, hey, Megan, how you doing? Can't wait for you to join a bit more with property development. We need to have a chat one day soon, I think. Anyway, before we carry on with the podcast and the 5-day challenge and how it happened, Bob, do you have a tip for the day?
Well, probably a bit of a strange one. You know how I like insignificant things. Well, I like to know things. Trivia, sometimes I like to have a look at trivia. Guess what? I found out the other day that honey, which is a great health thing if you get the right sort of honey, they found in Egypt, in tombs, honey that's over 4,000 years old, and guess what? It still tasted sweet. Can you believe that? 4,000-year-old honey.
Wow. I wonder if it tastes any better or it has any more health benefits or...
I've got no idea.
Could you look that up and get back to me?
Okay, I'll get back to you on that. But it got me thinking about, that's a long time, 4,000 years. Sweet deals, honey sweet deals. You can have such a good sweet deal in property, and guess what? It only takes 1 or 2 years. A sweet deal, but it lasts a long, long time.
A bit like honey.
A bit like honey.
Well, there you go.
Yes, honey.
So today we're going to talk about our 5-day challenge, which we held inside a Facebook group. So that group's still open. So if you wanted to do the challenge, you could actually just go and join the Facebook group and work your way through the 5 days. So day 1 will be at the bottom and it'll work its way up. And we also created workbooks, so you'll be able to download those and work your way through. What we did was every morning at 10 a.m. for 30 minutes, we jumped inside this Facebook group live and we had it structured and we worked through a system to get people started, really like a bit of inertia, wasn't it, Bob?
Yeah, it wasn't so much, obviously 5 days, 5 half-hour sessions over 5 days. You're not going to turn into a property developer instantly, and it's not meant to be a whole education thing on how to do property development. It was more towards people who are thinking about it, and maybe those first moves, those first actions that you could take. And although, of course, we had some of our regulars on there as well, developers, but it was such good fun. I've never done one before, ever, and it was because it was like every day something different. 30 minutes, it was just charged. There was so much energy, and we had quite a bit to cover every day. It was just great. It was good fun.
And today we're going to unpack what we did cover, so that's cool. We'll go through the bullet points on those, the big takeaways. But what I also found interesting, Bob, was the knowledge gaps that we plugged for people. Because when you come to maybe a 3-day workshop, or you're involved in something else we do, whether you're in our mastery program or our mentoring program, we always teach a lot of information. We try and keep it as simple as possible and make sure you understand. But when you're learning something, it's really difficult to retain information. And Janita said to me, I took this away from day whatever it was. I was like, you should know that already. You've already been to workshops. How did you miss that? And she goes, I don't know. It just really clicked for me. I was like, well, there you go. How good is that? So just plugging in for 30 minutes a day plugged a massive hole for her and opened up a better journey for her, which is awesome. So anyway, Bob, I thought would work our way through what we did.
Okay, sounds like fun.
It is going to be fun. But like I said, if you want to go and do the challenge, it's just the Facebook page is called 5-Day Property Development Challenge. We just went 5-Day Property Development Challenge. I don't know what I was thinking there. And you can just join it and work your way through. So why not? It's free, and if you're into property or into property development, you'll probably get a lot out of it. Just 30-minute stints, which is awesome. And you could have your own 5-day challenge. So, Bob, we started off on day one. I'm going to give you the bullet points, and then we'll work our way through them. So we started off with what is your why? Then we went to the skills that you already have. Then we went to your risk profile, your financial situation, and brokers and capital. So let's just start with what we touched on start with your why.
Yeah, the why. That's a big thing, not just in property development. It's what drives you. It's where your energy and your drive and your determination comes from. And it can be lots of things, not just, I want to drive a red Ferrari. It needs to be something more solid than that. And so, look, property development's often about money, isn't it? Why do we do it? We do it for lots of reasons, but we do it to make good money. And it's more about what we would do with that. Our why could be around a whole heap of things. It could be more time off, because with property development, you can make a lot more money than your day job, but in a lot less time, a lot less work. So it could be, reclaiming time. It could be getting out of the day job that you don't like. There's set up your financial future. There's a whole heap of reasons, isn't there, of why. But I think you need to state the why. We probably don't talk about that enough, is to really understand what it is that's going to drive you, because it's not always simple and easy and a garden bed of roses. There's tough times. You've got to deal with stuff, and it's when you reflect back on, why am I actually doing this? Yeah, no, that's right. I'm determined. I'm going to get through this. That matters.
Yeah, and it's a great point that you just made there, Bob, that life's not always easy, whether that's in property development or anything. And you listening right now, you might be going through some sort of tough patch, and I hope you're not, but it does happen. And I was seeing a counsellor a few years ago, actually, and she said to me that human beings, it was a great relationship we ended up having. We became quite good friends. But she said people get sold a story in life that it's going to be easy. And life isn't going to be easy. You are going to be challenged at some point. And we have challenges every day with property development. They're not huge, but there are things you've got to overcome. So that's within developing themselves, and we always have solutions. But then also the why was important, because you will have things pop up and get in the way. And you need to see things as on the way and not in the way. And you need to carry on doing what you want to do alongside life's oncoming obstacles, because there will always be a lot of them. And sometimes it feels like you're driving uphill. You're going up a one-way street the wrong way. But then it turns a corner and it's all plain sailing. And you're going to have that in life, whether that's with anything. And so property development is included in that. So understanding your reason and attaching, I remember you talking about this, attaching a feeling to that.
Yeah, feeling an emotion to it.
Yeah, it will help you drive forward and and keep on the journey and feel excited about it, because at the end, the payday, when people give up, they don't get that feeling. The payday, oh my gosh, the payday is so good. When you look in the bank and it's like, boom, yay. But some people just don't get there because they just don't follow through. So we talked about your why. Then we talked about the skills you already have, Bob.
Yeah, well, a lot of people bring skills to the table that you might not even realise. There's a lot of skills out there. It could be skills from your current job. Maybe you've got a job, it could be a management or a sub-management job where you're organising people, where you're meeting time frames. It could be raising a family. Well, I mean, goodness, you think of all the skills involved in that. Getting kids sorted out, getting to places on time, a lot of time management involved in that, a lot of communication, all sorts of things, all sorts of backgrounds, project management, but not necessarily property project management. Could be IT project management even.
Even a PA, Bob. A PA organises something, organises a person to, runs. A PA as a person runs somebody else who is often running something bigger. And that's a lot like a property development. Yeah,
so we ask people to think about the skills that you currently have and how they might be helpful or adaptable to property development.
You can communicate well.
Yep.
You can organise well.
What about tough conversations sometimes? Sometimes you have to have a tough conversation. Can you do it? Can you deal with that? How are you going to deal with that? Those sorts of things. But people, just what you bring to the table.
You already have more than you think in most cases. The next thing we talked about was risk profile. So some people are more or less risk adverse, and whether that is something you might want to change. If you're like totally take on any risk, you might want to rein that back. But if you're too risk adverse and it's going to stop you moving forward, maybe you need to address that. And so we just looked at you having a look at yourself and how you deal with risk, or whether it's slowed you down in life or speed you up in life. Then we went on to financial situation, which was really where the property development stuff, the actual taking property development action, less of the inside journey, more of the outside journey, kicks off. Bob, what's the importance of knowing your financial situation?
Yeah, it is pretty important. And like you said, it's the first solid bit of property development. There's a couple of things happen simultaneously, but how are you going to finance a property development? Now, financiers don't finance 100% of the costs. They'll finance most of them, 75, 80%, even more, but you have to have some equity yourself, what we call equity in property development, mostly cash, but it could be an unencumbered property. How are you going to finance it? How much money do you have? And, people often don't sit down, unless they've done a loan recently, they mightn't have done an asset and liability statement of their position. What assets do they own? What are those assets worth? What liabilities and loans and so forth do they have? What's your net assets? And start to think about, well, okay, I'm going to have to get my hands on some money. How do I do that? You might have some investment money on call. You might have money getting interest on. You might have some capital. You might have equity. A lot of people have equity wealth. It's not actually cash, but the point is, can you extract cash? Can you do a refinance perhaps? Or maybe you've got a redraw facility or a line of credit. How can you get your hands on some cash? Because that's going to dictate a lot how you go forward from there. And it might be that you don't have enough cash of your own at the moment.
And then we actually broached that topic. We talked about doing joint ventures, which are very, very common in our community. We do them all the time, and a lot of our students do them. I think you've got a conversation this morning, Bob, with somebody wanting to do one. So that was day one. And remember, there is a workbook, so you can work through that, and it makes it quite easy. So day two, Bob, was finding your patch. And we covered, we talked about what a patch is. Do you start where you live? Councils and state resources, red flags to screen for, why you gear, what gearing's about, and getting the right structure. So what were the big takeaways, do you think, for finding your patch, or what was important there?
I just think the importance of a patch. You need to know where you're likely to do a development, and that's important. It could be close to where you live, could be a bit further away, but what you need to do is narrow down an area and become a real expert. That's what that's about. Otherwise, you can't make really good decisions unless you know an area really well.
And you talked about, which is something you always talk about, we're often going to do something near our home, but sometimes that just doesn't work. And so choosing, the next patch and how to use resources around you to find out what's allowed and what you're allowed to put, in the patch that you choose. So we went through sort of also the types of development you may do too, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. And look, our recommendation is always don't start too big. Particularly, even if you might have quite a wad of money, don't start too big, because just start smaller. There's lots of smaller type developments where people start small subbies, small townhouse developments, duplexes, those sorts of things. So, yeah, don't start too big. And we started to talk about that. So now we've sort of chosen our patch. Now we're talking about, well, what sort of project might we like to do in that patch? And remember, that could reflect back to day one and what we can afford to do as well. So they're interrelated, these things.
And the whole, actually the whole 5 days was really interrelated. We talked also about, being comfortable and absolutely knowing everything about your patch. And I just have to have a bit of a shout out today to Sondra, who's winning the book, because she did the 5-day challenge. And she was telling me yesterday that where she lives, the patch doesn't work, but she's found somewhere that does. So that was, I don't know whether that was her takeaway from the 5-day challenge, but if it wasn't, it was really good to hear that people do listen and take that important stuff on board.
It is important. Every step's important, but getting that patch nail, that's a big step.
Day 3, we covered feasibilities. And so that was numbers decide, the big 3 numbers, what beginners miss, the margin benchmarks by product, time is money, when the margin doesn't work, and build costs from real builders.
Yeah, well, back to numbers. Hey, feasibility is just numbers, but how important is it? When I've seen people get into trouble over the years, not people I've been teaching, thank goodness, but I've run into a lot of people. Very often, more often than anything, it's that they just get the numbers wrong. They don't know what they don't know, and it's numbers. It's not high level mathematics. This stuff, Year 4 math is about as deep as it gets, but you've got to get it right. You've got to know all the elements. Get the pricing right. And most importantly, the whole point of the feasibility is to see that you're making sufficient profit.
We also covered the margin scheme. So I think the good thing about property development and doing this as a 5-day challenge, we covered off on things that are quite important for people to know, like really high level, like the important bits, which is a really great way to get started before you start chunking it down and learning the nuts and bolts of it all. But I believe that the big takeaway from the feasibilities was time. Time is money, because time's going to cost interest. And I think that really shone out a lot at a really basic level as something I don't believe a lot of people realise. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would. And time in 2 respects. When you're doing a feasibility, you have to get your timing right, because as you said, the thing that relates to time is interest, and that can just mount up. So get the timing right on your feasibility. The other side of time is you have to keep your project moving forward all the time. That's why you need to know not just what you're doing at the moment, but future steps, and keep it moving. Don't let it get bogged down. Every day is money. Every day is interest.
And that's a good point, what you just pointed out there, Bob, is knowing the next step, because you can often have that underway, and sometimes you're 2 steps ahead doing things that will be coming up, but you're actually doing them earlier. Okay, day 4 was funding, and this was, as usual, the big BFO for many people, the blinding flash of the obvious. We covered the 2 stages of finance, who actually lends money to developments, the 2 LVR limits, how much your thumb rule for equity requirement in any development is. We covered the servicing or the no serviceability test, what financiers want to see, and we covered JV partners and how that they are very mainstream. So we did rip through all that, and as I said, jump onto the Facebook page, 5-day property development challenge, and you can download the workbook and rewatch these as well if you want to go through these. But Bob, what do you think the big takeaway on day 4 was?
I think people starting to understand development finance as opposed to what they probably understand and what we call retail finance. So a lot of people are familiar with what we typically call retail finance. They bought a house, they might have bought investment properties. And we started to explain in more depth about the type of finance that you use when you do development. And it's quite different. There's some very specific differences in there that actually make it easier. It is actually easier, in my opinion, to get finance to do a property development than finance to do a house,
Really?
to buy a house.
What makes you say that?
Well, it's around that serviceability factor.
Of course. Because with property development, you don't need serviceability because it is commercial finance, so they loan you the interest. Let that be your takeaway. This is the one that blows people away, and you always think that we've said it so many times, but people don't realise. And that's why very often people that have been investing in property as a property investor will switch to development because they can't borrow any money, because as a property investor, you need to have that serviceability to be able to service the loan. But with development, you don't. And that's why they go from investing to development. They still usually will keep some or all of or most of, depending on how much equity they have available to get started in development, but they don't need to service it. So there you go. Big takeaway there.
That's one of the big takeaways with finance, I've found.
Yeah, for most people.
Can be quite a shock for some people.
Yeah. And then we talked about JV partners and how mainstream that is, like just how mainstream. I'm a JV partner in multiple projects, and you know we run projects where other people are JV partners with us.
Well, that's what we do, yeah. In our own life, we do a lot of it, but we've always encouraged it at Property Mastermind. But particularly, I've done so much in the past myself personally, so it was only natural that I'd want to teach people and encourage them to do it. And that's why it's just sort of second nature within the Property Mastermind community to do that. And we see so many examples of that with people we're mentoring. We see deals done. Can I say consummated? Joint ventures consummated. I think you can use that word, actually. It's not just what you're thinking about.
I was thinking
nothing to do with a honeymoon or anything else. Joint ventures, let's say, formed then at things like workshops. Or, yeah, all the time. It's just, like you said, second nature. It is. It's
I saw
happening all the time.
I saw in your diary today you've got a call booked for later this afternoon, which we do have our live Q&A tonight, so make sure you're off the phone for that. But it is with someone in the mentoring program who was looking for a joint venture partner, and I had a random phone call from somebody who said, I'm looking for investors. Two things. If you're looking for investors, you don't come to me for that, because unless you're part of our community, I'm not going to go, yeah, sure. But I ended up having a great conversation with her, and then I thought to myself, she had money but needed more. I've got we have a mentoring student that has money but needs more. So together, I introduced them, and I think that your phone call this afternoon will be about that joint venture agreement, which would be awesome. And that often, you've got to think about it, united you stand, divided you fall. And that doesn't always have to be with someone you know. As long as you know, the rules are in place and you've got a system on how it works, you're just going to spend sort of 18 months with somebody, and then at the end you split a profit. How good? Yeah,
and it gets so many people started in property development.
Yeah.
If you're thinking of starting property development and you think, oh, I'll have to save up a certain amount of money, you'll never do it. You'll never catch up. So that's why it's a great way of kicking off. My first two projects were done with this sort of thing.
Yeah, it's a great way to get started, I would agree.
Yeah.
Last day 5, we talked about approvals. So DAs and BAs or CCs, wherever you are, we broke that down and just explained the timing of them, what they take, what you need to do to get them. Then we talked about the teams involved with those. We talked about delays, what to do when they happen. We talked about fast track pathways, choosing consultants, choosing builders, and first project risks and the antidote. That was quite a lot again for day 5, Bob. What was do you think the big takeaway would have been there? Or what do you think is a mistake that people often make under any one of those?
Well, we're talking about approvals. It's about getting the right team together. And that's important to get those teams, both getting your development permit and your building permit CC. It's about team forming. We do a lot of that in our teachings, getting that right. But also, I think we went on to talk about builders. Did we?
Yes.
Yep.
Choosing the builder.
Choosing the right builder, and talk about don't get spooked, because everything you see on TV is always about the naughty builders. You hardly ever see a good builder on television, hey? And even that
that's clickbait.
Even that program I watch sometimes with the Greek certifying guy from. It's on YouTube, from Victoria, goes around and finds all the faults in buildings. You'd think all builders were bad if you watch that.
Can we just backtrack here? Because it is a slight obsession you have, Bob. He was watching it this morning and yesterday morning.
I go in phases.
Oh, my God. But it is a little bit
I haven't watched him for nearly a year.
Oh, my gosh. He's so funny. Hey, guys, check this out. And he just walks through dodgy builders. But there are great builders, and we've got great builders, and we've had many mentoring students who have great builders. So don't be spooked by that. That's where you were.
No. There's a
or
lot
Bob's
of
obsession.
There's a lot of things you could do to choose the correct builder process-wise. So, yeah, that was good. That sort of tidied up that part of it. With the building construction, I think we talked a little bit about building contracts as well, but without getting too heavy on the contract side of things.
Yeah, and that was kind of before that. We then went to the wind up, and we actually gave away one of our mastery programs, which was awesome.
I wasn't even aware you're going to do it.
No.
Well, I got an inkling just before.
So we ran a little session afterward because we had to go and create a draw, which means we had to get everyone's name and put them on a piece of paper and put them in a hat and draw one out. But before we did that, the wind up was action creates clarity, and you have to take steps. Action causes traction, which will give you momentum, and that'll make it happen. And too many people live their life. I'm actually doing a podcast about this today in the Bounce Back Better podcast around we living life now. We just can't wait until. It's just one of those things. We get in the habit of putting things off and doing the same thing over and over, and before we realise we're just living in a cycle of momentum, and you settle for mediocre, and mediocre is where dreams go to die. And that's the parking lot of life. You're heading toward a journey, and then you pull into the parking lot because something happens, it's minimal, but it's a wee distraction, and then you never get back on the journey, and you wake up and you fail the rocking chair test. So it's really about, if this is something you want to do, then do it. Stop thinking, waiting until, just blimmin' do it.
Yeah. And I had to pick up something off your desk yesterday, and I saw a little sticker note on your monitor.
Yes.
What did it say?
It says, life is happening now. And I actually just wrote that yesterday, and it was I go to Toastmasters, so the week before someone did a speech, and that's what they did it on, which inspired this week's podcast really, because we're not too bad at it, at remembering to live life now. And that's the little things. It's going to the movies during the week. It's just, like last night it was Tuesday, and I was like, I'm going to go and buy us a bottle of wine and celebrate. And
that was great.
And I
texted my sisters last night.
Because Bob had been given some really nice crystal glasses that were his mum's, and he was going to put them in storage. And I was like, no way, we need to use these. And it was to have a drink out of those. And then he started telling me some stories about his mum and dad. And that's kind of living life, like having a little bit of a chat, doing something different, like, ooh, naughty else, having a drink on a Tuesday. It's not a normal thing, but it's living life, and remember that life is happening now. So if you're thinking about property development, life's happening now, and we can't coulda, woulda, shoulda. There's a water or petrol or whatever. There's always going to be something. We're doing it. If you want to do it, you should do it. If you want to do it, number one, go and do the 5-day challenge inside 5-day. If you can't find it, send me an email, hillary@propertymastermind.com.au, and I will send you a link. Hillary has 1 L. So but yeah, jump on that and have a go at the 5-day challenge. 5 30-minute slots. Download the workbooks, work your way through it, and think, yeah, I'm doing it. And you'll get to see how Bob and I work if you haven't already. I'm sure many of you have been on our masterclasses and wherever all the stuff that we do, the podcast and whatever goes on. But jump on, have a go, and if you decide property development's for you, reach out to the team. You can book a call, you can email me, Hillary@propertymastermind, but just get on the track and go for it. That was kind of the summary, and then of course we gave away the $10,000 prize.
We did $10,000 less $3, $9,997 giveaway.
To say,
how exciting! That's life changing.
It was.
I mean, you could give somebody a second-hand car worth that, right? And it'll just get older and worth less money. Or you can give them something like that, totally change their financial future and intergenerational. I never thought of it. I just thought of that.
You did. You know what, though? You're right, because when you invest in yourself, that stays with you. It doesn't devalue. And then the money you make from that just goes forward to propel you. And that's why it's gold. You get all the mastery sessions and just hanging out with us on a regular basis. How good is that? For those that like it, there'll be some that'll be thinking, oh no thanks. But I suppose in summary, the 5-day challenge was great. We did enjoy it. You can still access it if you like. We've gone through what we covered, a few takeaways. Bob's thumb rule, definitely worth knowing that one.
Oh, the finance thumb rule.
Yeah, the finance.
Oh, you got to watch it for that.
Yeah, so it's telling you how much equity you need to get started. and where that might come from. That was gold. But other than that, Bob, I think that's it for the week. Next week we've got a couple of interviews coming up with successful students and deals they've done.
Everyone loves those. Everyone's a voyeur. They want to see what other people are doing and how they're doing it and how well they're going. And they're always very popular when we interview some of our mentoring students that are out there doing stuff.
Okay, well, I think that's it for us this week. I hope you got something from this. Go ahead and jump on that 5-day challenge or book a call or send me an email, and we'll catch up with you next week. Bye for now.
Bye.